Hi, I'm John Cronin. The local a local election candidate for Reform UK. I'll be running in May 2022. Who I have here today is my regular companion, Matt Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely. Reform UK activist. Been campaigning all over London. I'm regular with John.
Yeah, and a very special guest today, Austin Williams. In layman's terms, he's written a lot of books, and he's got a very impressive CV, if I may say so myself. He works at the Kingston
School of Art. I teach architecture there, but I also run the Future Cities project, which is kind of a think tank, but that's a dirty word these days. So it's just an organisation that kind of organises conference debates around the city and urban issues.
Okay. All right. First of all, before we move on, first thing I'd like to bring up is Reform UK are going to have their first party conference. It's going to be held on the 3rd of October in Manchester at the Mercure Piccadilly Hotel in Manchester. It'll be from 10 a.m. till 5. The tickets are £10 for paid supporters, and if you just curious and would be interested in signing up for Reform UK, it'd be £15 a tickets. 7 p.m. it'll be a gala dinner with 3-course meal entertainment. It'll be limited to 100 people, and the tickets will be £40.
About that, there'll be lots of guests. Richard Tyson will be speaking, David Bull will be speaking, and then they'll have experts from different fields. They'll have health experts, economic experts, and they'll talk about sort of the party's plans going forward. So it'll be a very good event.
Okay, first of all, start off with will be the cladding scandal. What I'd be interested in is your take on it, Austin.
Well, it's a scandal, isn't it? I think that there's several aspects to it, right? One is that obviously since Grenfell, that was a real proper physical tragedy, 72, 73 dead, and the aftermath of that needed to be resolved. Now it's almost 5 years on, it's 4 years on, and nothing, they haven't even resolved the inquiry.
They've really dragged their feet, haven't they, the government, on this?
Dragged their feet, but you know, they've done 2 stages report, they've done the first stage, second stage, now they're starting to talk about implementing measures into 18-metre high, 6-storey high buildings, and maybe 4-storey high, 11-metre high buildings, bringing in sprinklers, etc., etc. So some of this is sensible, and some of it I think is over the top. And so the problem for me is that what the government has created, a little bit like the COVID scandal, which is based on zero risk, zero COVID, zero death. You know, everything is about zero. Everybody being
seen where safe. Australia is on that.
I know Australia's gone bonkers, but in terms of by putting absolute health and safety as the top of the agenda, you're then now having a conversation about fire safety on the same terms, right? There is no such thing as absolute safety, right? And the point is that when you look at high-rise buildings with cladding, the number of fires are minuscule compared to fires in houses, in apartments, right? And yet this has now become such a paranoia that not only is the government creating a problem where people are going to be charged tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds
for life savings and money.
Yeah, but sometimes now the tenants are saying, why are we living in this potential death trap, when in fact it's just another property, right? The chances of their property catching fire are zero, as near as damn it.
But
right,
the fear that's been created by the government, by the, you know.
So everybody, so now you've got the government telling people that they're living in death traps, right? Yeah. Half ripping off the cladding, then realising they don't know what they're doing. So now people are living in worse problems because they're, have got half the cladding. Secondly, people are themselves saying, "Oh my God, is my cladding safe? I really, you really must help us." And therefore they'll get more bills. And the third thing is that actually the point about the cladding issue is that we just need to kind of calm ourselves down a little bit on the nature of risk. Right? And that's so for me that's the bigger problem.
Yeah,
so I agree it's a scandal.
Terrifying, isn't it? They're making people terrified. It's like they make people terrified over COVID. Yeah, there is a risk to everything.
Exactly.
The risk you can walk out there and you can get run over by a bus or whatever.
Yeah, don't tempt fate, John.
I know. I'm not tempting fate. You know what I mean.
Got to get on tonight. But that's what I would say. So while I recognise that there is a problem with a number of buildings, I think that they've over-egged it and now they've got nowhere to run with it.
So obviously you teach in university. Now, I'm at sixth form college, and I've experienced face-to-face learning this year. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So for me this year, we did a couple of months in college with no restrictions. Then it was online, which was awful. Nobody learned anything. And then we went back to college with this mask mandate, which meant people could learn nothing. Everyone was muzzled up. Now, what are universities going to look like going forward next year?
Well, it doesn't. You've got a two-tier problem, right? One is what the government might try to say that is the law,
right?
And then you have independent civil organisations like universities, hospitals, public transport, who make it up on their own, right? So it doesn't matter what the law says, right? So on a bus, on a tube, you're meant to wear a mask. Not that many people do these days, right? But universities are saying it for their own paranoia reasons, for their own insurance reasons, right? If a student catches it and sues them, they want to make sure. So we have a situation where I've been told for the last 3 months we're going back to face-to-face teaching, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Then when I ask, what does that mean? They say, I have to wear a visor, students have to wear masks, right? And when I try to explain that the phrase face-to-face does not involve any barriers, right? Yeah. People have forgotten. It's been 18 months we've been doing this nonsense, right? And therefore people have forgotten what
very
the
interestingly,
conversation is.
Boris Johnson agrees with you in his true heart, because there we are. Last year, in September, when schools first went back, he said you couldn't possibly wear face masks. You can't learn in face masks. And then obviously he introduced the mandate. So even the Prime Minister acknowledges this. And
you're pushing a clown up.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
A good view on Boris there, aren't you?
Many students obviously have been vaccinated. The vast majority have been vaccinated. There's the levels of COVID are falling now. So this really is. They're making students wear masks now. It's never ending, surely, by that logic.
Yeah, it's also idiotic, right? The general agenda is that if you're over 80, let's say if you're over 60, right, you're at a much higher risk of catching COVID and dying, right? It was always on the basis that you may vaccinate people down to 50, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds,
12-year-olds.
12-year-olds, right? This is now madness, partly because Boris, I hate to tell you this, right, has got nowhere to run, because once you stop the COVID paranoia, what policy does Boris have to renew Britain, right? So this is the certain sense that he's the saviour of Britain by giving everyone the vaccine, therefore it's a constant process of rollout, whether it's the younger or whether it's the third jab or booster jab, whatever it might be. So I don't know whether this is going to ever end, but obviously when we talked earlier about cladding, the risk-benefit analysis of young people getting a vaccine and having after effects, right, is more pronounced and dangerous than if you're an 85-year-old. Right?
Precisely. I mean, there are plenty of journalists, for example, Tom Harwood from GB News, who keep saying children as young as 12 should be vaccinated. Now, I totally agree with anybody over 18 being given the choice to be vaccinated. I think that's a sensible solution. But anybody under the age of 18, I think it's a total nonsense. And I asked him for some data, because he sort of went on about it, and nobody can provide any data of a risk-benefit analysis to children about vaccination. So,
the data was there for a start, right?
That's the point.
And Tom Harwood has kind of lost his way on a number of issues, so I don't want to hold him out as the great oracle of common sense.
Absolutely not, but I was just using the app.
Yeah, but I just think that we just need to bring back a little bit of common sense. It's like saying we want a new normal. Actually, I want the old normal back, right? Which is how we thought sensibly took our own decisions. We are the.
If we complied, in return we get back to the way we were, normal.
Exactly. Yeah, we should be in control of our own lives rather than having this kind of public health initiative thrust upon us at every
treat
stage.
people like adults, not
Exactly.
Yeah. And you wanted to talk about China a little bit, didn't you, John?
Yeah. You've spent some time in China.
I have.
I was going to say, so you know their way of life and their way to work and all the rest of it. Do you think that they start to infiltrate into this country the way China is?
Yeah, well, I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. So I lived there for 6 years.
Okay.
In Suzhou, in Jiangsu province, outside Shanghai. And it's an authoritarian country, right? It's a one-party state. Right?
Yeah.
So when there's revelations at how terrible it is that China is clamping down on civil liberties and all the rest of it, right? Tell me something I don't know, right? We've known that for 60 years, right? The problem is when this country starts doing it, right? Because this country is supposed to have a general understanding of democracy. China never has, right? Other than it being the opposite, right? So China's not influencing us. It's more we haven't got a bloody idea of where to, push our policies and convince people through rhetoric, through dialogue, through conversation, but it's much easier if you can mandate stuff, which comes down to a topic which you were raising before. Sorry to flit straight off from China, right?
Okay.
But the whole infill thing of the housing, right?
Yeah.
And the cladding scandal and the low traffic neighbourhoods, right? This is a society where for 18 months we've been locked down in our houses. Surprise, surprise, councils who are meant to be elected officials are wandering around, right, without any consultation, discussion, dialogue, or any interest in democracy, imposing stuff, closing roads, building things on previous children's playgrounds and garden spaces. This is madness. The conversation could be had out, right? Should you build some lovely housing on this park, right? That's a conversation, not an instruction,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So on that level, that's what China would do, right? China would say, thank you very much, bugger off, I'm building a party
I'm shutting
headquarters,
the road.
without any consultation. Now, we've had that democratic ideal as part of what British society and politics represents for such a long time that we really, really mustn't let it go.
Yeah, councils seem to have lost their way. They seem to be, they were elected by the residents.
Yeah.
They're not listening to the residents, they're following their own agenda or following...
Yeah, it's much easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
Much easier. It's much easier to be a lecturer swanning around at home in your underpants, right?
Yeah.
Talking to students, right? And you don't give a toss whether they turn up or not because you pre-record a lecture and you don't have to have any difficult questions. You can say, oh, my signal's going, I can't take difficult questions, right? All of that difficult questions conversation is really being lost off the political agenda, even to the extent of the House of Commons for however long it's been, 12 months.
Cabinet haven't met in person since the
Precisely.
15th of December.
Yeah, precisely.
So how on
What's that
earth can
about?
they... Exactly. Yeah.
I'll tell you what summed up for me, the government doesn't seem to have got the priorities all wrong. I mean, like the other week they were debating about Geronimo, was it? And yet in Parliament Square, you had the Gurkhas on hunger strike, about their pensions.
Yeah.
I mean, where are the priorities? It seems to be.
Well, we've got 5 Extinction Rebellion protesters on hunger strike for 6 days.
Yeah.
This is real commitment. Do you know what I mean? 6 days hunger strike. It's almost like a diet, I think, right? It's not a hunger strike, but so the idea that they're out there on the streets protesting, and as you say, people who, whether it's Afghan refugees or whether it's Gurkhas, people who've actually done something useful for the country, are now being kind of kicked to one side for small-scale, small-fry issues. That's a real thing.
So you just mentioned Extinction Rebellion. I actually want to talk to you about them a little bit. So over the last 9 days, they've been doing protests in London to disrupt people's way of life, and they're going to carry on for another week or so. I think that's the idea. Now I went to about 3 or 4 of the protests, and I just stood and watched for a couple of hours to see. They do things illegally, they block roads, they glue themselves to the top of it, they disrupt life. The police do nothing about it. So there are 200 protesters the other day, and there were roughly 186 police officers there the other day, I counted roughly. And the police do nothing. Do you think this Extinction Rebellion are going about it the right way? And if not, how do you think they should go about it?
Well, going about it the right way.
Going back.
I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Right? So I'm not a climate change denier, by the way.
Okay.
But I don't put environment or the planet above all other topics.
Okay.
Right? I think there are bigger fish to fry. I'm more interested in poverty, in fighting racism. Right? All those things are now marginalised because you say, if we don't save the planet, then all the other issues are irrelevant, right? I don't think so. I think it's the other way around, right? So I don't agree with their agenda. Plus, I don't agree with, as we've said already, right, risk-benefit, the alarmism which has come from this Extinction Rebellion, where kids are frightened out of their skins that they're going to die by the time they're 18.
Emergency and all that. Yet you see what's happening in Kabul. All that's going on at the same time.
Yeah, no, obviously, but the British military have brochures saying how environmentally friendly their bullets are these days, right? So they don't leave a vapor trail. So the world has gone mad on environmentalism. You can't move for it. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
The idea that we're supposed to be carbon neutral or net carbon neutral by 2025, which is what Extinction Rebellion are demanding, is absurd, right? It means stopping everything around us.
I literally said that to one of their activists the other day. I said, look, she sort of said to me, why have you got a problem with us? I said, because you want my life to end as it is. You want no more cars on the road, you want no more trains, you want no more meat. And she said, yes, but I don't agree with that. I said, so why are you here then? Why are you with this group?
The hypocrisy of Extinction Rebellion as well. Like the leader drives a diesel car.
We're all hypocrites somewhere deep down, right? But obviously, the funny thing about her, Gail Bradbrook, is that when she first started the whole movement, she went to South America to go to lick some hallucinogenic frogs, right? And she had fantastic visions, insights into how to save the world. And she's all written it all down, right? So she's come back. So she's off the record, she's not exactly a full set of braces, right?
No.
But the point is that she's kind of projecting this as a vision for how to become active, to do something profoundly important, right? So I understand that if I maybe was 12, 8, 15, 18, wherever, right? I might also think this is an important agenda to buy into, save the world. There's no bigger agenda, is there, right? Unless you think that maybe the world isn't falling apart, right? We're living better lives, more secure lives, longer lives, even with Afghanistan, even with COVID, we're living longer and healthier than ever before, right? And the world is getting a better place. The point for me is that if you really want to improve the world, you should be improving the living standards of people in Afghanistan and Africa, right? Not saying we should have the same living standards as them. They should have the same living standards as us. And that's going to take energy, it's going to take mobility, it's going to take carbon emissions. That's what makes the world go round, right? That's what I'm in favour of.
And it's also very interesting to see that, as you say, when I first went to the protest, I thought it'd be a load of 15 to 25-year-olds. But very interestingly, I'd say that made up about 60% of it. I'd say the rest were sort of around the age of 60 to 70, and it was a very white crowd. It was very undiverse. They go on about diversity. They all had Black Lives Matter signs.
It's middle class.
Yeah, it's middle class white people. I genuinely probably saw about 3 non-white people all week. It's genuinely one of the most undiverse crowds ever, and I just think the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah, well, I don't want it to be more diverse. First of all, I don't really necessarily always buy into the idea that everybody has to be diverse.
No,
right?
I understand, but the fact they're going on about how that all of them have got Black Lives Matter and equality, and yet there's no equality in your crowd.
Yeah, but they are trying to build this, right? They're trying to link Black Lives Matter and Extinction Rebellion into one coherent organisational force. As it happens, they will soon realise that they conflict on many topics,
many
not
topics.
least
Absolutely.
the race of those two organisations, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that in some ways, it exemplifies what I say, which is that kind of middle-class white elderly establishment over here, while telling the third world that maybe we shouldn't develop as rapidly as us, right, is a terrific colonial mindset, right? So I just think that there's something strange it's not coincidence, right, that it's a white thing, because if you're of African descent, you kind of realise you actually want a little bit of development, right? So you're not really going to buy into it. So and also it's an end of life thing, right? If you're 85 years old, you haven't got COVID, you think you're walking on water, maybe then getting arrested is of no consequence to you, especially if you've led a kind of a blameless life. Then maybe spending two weeks in the cells, right, is not too bad.
Brilliant. Yep. So we'll just finally talk about the Bastard of Ideas on the 9th and 10th of October.
Yeah, first of all, I was going to say we touched on the Cladding thing. There's a demonstration on the 16th of September at House of Parliament. They are what they're expecting. They're expecting a big crowd, but if you can't make it, they've got a GoFundMe page. It's the UK Cladding Action Group, and where we can donate money. I think they've raised nearly half the money they're looking to get already. So if you can't make it, but you would like to donate, please visit their website, and we can. I'm sure they'd appreciate whatever money you can afford. Okay, right. On to the Battle Ideas. I saw. That's where I met you. Last time I saw you at Battle Ideas. How did you find it?
I opened the door. There it was. No, how did I find it? I thoroughly enjoy it. I've been going to the Battle of Ideas since its inception.
Okay.
I know I don't look it's old, but every year I've been going there, and obviously last year was the first time it got called off because of the whole restrictions. So again, it's going to be face to face. Marvel. The last one we went to, that one-day event, with 400 people in a room, was just remarkable. You forget what it's like to be in a crowded room.
Yeah,
and also, the good thing was that not one person that I met talked about coronavirus or pandemic. They were all engaged in political conversations on a wide range of topics, like we were saying, the environment, all the way through to risk. So I think that it's a fantastic opportunity. There's how many, like 350 speakers or something. I'm organising 4 discussions.
Wow.
I'm doing one on China.
One on
China.
Okay.
I'm doing one on transport and travel. The fact that environmentally, as well as COVID-wise, we're not supposed to travel anymore, and what that means for social development. And I'm doing one more broadly on the city and ID passports.
Okay. This time, the next one is at Church House, Westminster, the same place. It's on the 9th and 10th of October. I presume it will be from 10 to 6.
And beyond.
And beyond, possibly. The tickets, well, the reason I'm letting you know now is because the tickets, they've got early bird prices. The weekend for both days, the standard is £75, with concessions at £40. And the one day, if you just can turn up the one day, the standard is £45, with concessions at £25.
And anybody who thinks that's expensive, right? There's probably there's a choice of around about 6-7 strands with about 5 discussions in each of them. So it's 35 or other discussions available to you. Plus there's some drinks and a meal at the end and networking and all the rest of it. So it's a good deal.
Well worth it.
Price of a football ticket.
Yeah, absolutely, less than probably. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks very much for watching, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you both.
All right.
Cheers guys, thank you very much. Cheers,
Thanks
man.
very much for joining us.
Much obliged. Very, very good.
Appreciate it.